Well, hello everyone, and welcome to I Was There, the program where we get up close and personal with people who were actual eyewitnesses to history. I'm Ron Roberson.
And I'm Jeff Trujillo.
And we're two P's in a podcast. I be the black eye P. What P you be?
You said I was the Chickapee, but I don't know what that means.
It just sounded good anyway, you know, so you can be Pee-wee.
Okay, I'll be Pee-wee. There you go. I'm Pee-wee. There you go. I'll go with that one.
Well, I was so thankful for all the folks that have been calling in. As a matter of fact, I got, just before we went on this program, got a call from some of the folks that had a gathering listening to our podcast.
Wow.
So there's about 7 people listening to the podcast that we did last, from the crack house to the White House.
We're actually inspiring group listenings now, I suppose, then, huh?
Yes.
Well, that's nice to know. Well, thank you guys out there for listening. If you're getting together in groups, take a picture and send to us. We'd love to see it. And you know, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think. And if you like what you hear, drop us 5 stars and you know, help our rating and help other people to find it. And please pass it along, you know, and you can visit our Facebook page and you can email us if you want at the iwastherepodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, we love feedback and we hope you're enjoying what we're doing because we're having a good time doing it.
Absolutely great time doing it. And today is no exception because we have somebody real special with us today. And I haven't seen this gentleman in, it's been about 20 some years since I've seen you last.
18.
About 8. Close enough. Close enough. And I was so thrilled when you said that Big Tom is coming to town.
Big Tom. So yeah.
We'll be talking to him. So kind of give us a little rundown on how this all came to be and what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I have the pleasure of meeting Big Tom's family. I grew up with his kids, his oldest son in particular. I met when I was in band in junior high in 7th grade. And through him, I got to know his siblings and got to know his parents. And since I knew Tom, I know his dad is Big Tom, and so I might refer to him as Big Tom tonight as we talk to him. I've had the pleasure of knowing the Minahan family now for gosh, 40 years, maybe even longer than that. But they have been just such a blessing in my life. And I actually used to work for Big Tom as well when I was in college. I worked for him for a bit. But in getting to know Big Tom throughout the years and his family, and even in recent years, just talking to him more and more, I've learned that he has an interesting perspective on history, and we're going to go into that.
And we're here for a very special occasion today, right? And what is that, Jeff?
Well, we are on this coming Saturday. Big Tom is going to be celebrating a big birthday.
Oh my goodness!
And so he's gonna have a big bash, and there's a local organization, the Bellflower Kiwanian, are going to recognize him. And so, you know, I just thought this is a great opportunity to get together and just kind of, you know, learn a little bit about Tom's history and celebrate him. Because
so what's the big occasion?
Well, can I say what birthday it is?
Well, it would be the 9-0.
It's the big 9-0.
I only got 10 more good years to go.
You got 20 at least. But yeah, the big 9-0. And so through 90 years, there's a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah, a whole lot of wisdom. Yeah.
So hopefully we can tap into some of that and learn something today.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Tom, why don't we go back? First of all, thanks for joining us. And why don't we start with the beginning? Where were you born? And maybe tell us a little bit about your childhood.
I was born in a little town, Sutherland, Nebraska. And we lived there only because it was a place to stay until my dad was able to get out of there. And we came to California and lived with my grandmother when I was 2. And we came to California, we had, my parents had 7 children. And we came to California and lived in my grandmother's 1-car garage.
Wow.
And that was in 1935.
Wow.
And those were tough times because from the story I hear, I never went hungry, but the story I hear, we didn't have any money and my dad didn't have a job. And of course, my grandmother and grandfather had to put up with their son-in-law, which was probably wasn't very pleasant. I mean, as I can look back, it couldn't have been very pleasant. But eventually things worked out. My dad got a job and everything worked out. We had our own house eventually.
Yeah. So 1935, that was in the midst of the Depression.
Right at the end of the Depression.
Yeah. What are your memories of that time? I mean, you said it was a tough time, and I think it was a tough time for a lot of Americans. I remember hearing from my grandparents just how rough it was during those years. What are your memories?
Well, I remember one saying my older brother popped off and said one time. He said, everybody said we were poor, and he said, I never knew we was poor until somebody told me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, everybody was in the same boat. And
Yeah.
that's the way it was. We went to church, and we knew the people at the church, we played baseball together, and we just kind of hung out together, and had weed roast and marshmallow roast and things like that. So that was the entertainment. So.
Wow.
But you said that earlier that you guys weren't hungry or what have you. How were you able to, sidestep all the other things that other people were experiencing at that time?
Well, I guess everybody was in the same boat. So there, we have a pantry at church. We give out food to the poor, and I'm sure my dad found out where that was. And I don't know. I really don't know. But there was places I guess you could pick up food. He had finally got a job, but a long time he didn't have a job.
Yeah.
In fact, another story that I heard later on in life is that we came to California. He put all the kids in one car, and of course we didn't stop on the way. We just kept on going.
Yeah.
And once we got to California, the police came and picked up my dad and took him to jail.
Oh, no.
And I never, it was heartbreaking for my older sister to tell me this.
Yeah.
And what happened though, he had some cattle and he mortgaged the cattle, and when he sold the cattle, he's supposed to pay off the mortgage. Well, he didn't do that. He kept the money, and that's how I'm assuming he got enough gas to get to California.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
And so he didn't do anything real right. But here's my mother living with her folks, and all the kids living in a garage, and her husband's in jail.
Yeah.
Wow.
And fortunately, I had an uncle that he came to the fight, and he bailed him out. He got out, I think, the next day, and eventually got a job.
Yeah.
But he didn't do the wrong thing, but he didn't do the right thing either. And in those days, you could do that. You could just file a claim and have the person put in jail until they paid their bill.
Yeah.
You can't do that today. You have to spend court after court after court to get somebody to go to jail.
Yeah.
But it was heartbreaking for me to hear that. But it was a sad thing. So.
Well, he's probably, that's probably, sadly, a pretty common story back then, because I know that people were, especially in the Midwest, my family came from Texas and Missouri during that time. And tough times. I think people were doing anything they could to survive. And if that's what you had to do to survive. And California, I know there was the mass migration to California during that time because everyone thought there was jobs in California. And so people were doing anything they could to get out here any way they could. So,
Well, another story I heard too was, and I was young all this time too though, but I heard one time my dad said, if we stay in Nebraska, we're going to starve and we're going to freeze. So if we go to California, we might just starve. So we had a warm garage to live in. I had the top bunk, and we shared the top bunk with somebody else. And so we managed, and I say a lot of people were in the same boat.
Yeah.
We went alone.
Yeah.
And speaking of California in the early days, I understood you lived actually in Compton. Is that true?
I went all the way through school in Compton.
Is that right? So it was a different Compton back in those days.
Entirely
wasn't it?
different.
Yeah. What happened? I mean, I'm no. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Compton. We'll get letters. But can you walk us through that time period?
No, it was just a changing period. People moving out, and how do you say it? The black people were moving in. I can't say that. You can say that.
I
say it without what?
I said it. Yeah. Straight out of Compton.
Yeah, so Tom's an original OG, basically, from Compton. So Compton, because I had read that they called it the white flight when the black community started moving to Compton in the early 50s, post-war. But prior to then, from what I've heard, Compton was a pretty idyllic place.
Very
back then.
outstanding.
Ranches and
I read it's one of the oldest communities in Los Angeles County.
Right.
I think it's the 8th oldest community or something.
Wow.
It was established in the mid 1800s, mid to late 1800s. And so, what was Compton like back then? What are your memories of Compton?
Well, it was just an upcoming city, and everybody was friendly. In fact, when I was 27, I already had my own business that I worked for a man when I was 13, and by the time I was 27, I owned a business.
Oh, wow.
wow.
And at 27, 28, I joined the Kiwanian Club.
Oh, okay.
And I got to tell you, the Kiwanian Club, we had 100 members at one time. And we just had everybody in town, just like what we have here in Bellflower.
Yeah.
But we had more of a group
This was in Compton?
in Compton.
In
Yeah.
Compton. And that's where your first business was at?
And that was my business was. But then I got into the carpet business by accident. But anyway, I got into the carpet business, and I still had the upholstering business. And I moved the carpet business to La Mirada, where I stayed there until 1999.
Yeah, yeah. So your first business was upholstery then?
Upholstery, yes.
Okay. How'd you get into the upholstery business?
I was in the 8th grade, and a friend of mine says he had the job. I was in the 7th grade, I guess, and he was in the 8th grade, and my friend Jack Levy says, I got this job doing it at the upholstery shop, just taking apart old furniture, and I'm not going to do it anymore. You want it? And I was selling newspapers, and I said, well, that sounds like a lot better than selling newspapers. And besides, you get to keep all the money you could find in the sofas and the chairs when you take them apart. I said, that really sounded good. So I started working for the man, and I worked for him from 13 until, I guess maybe I was only 24 the time I bought the business from him.
Wow.
And it was as far as upholstery businesses go, it was an outstanding business.
Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit because you got your business at 27, but before you got your business, one thing that we talked about not too long ago that I learned was that you served in the Korean War.
Right.
Were you?
Well, I was drafted, and at that time he was drafted at 19, and drafted for 2 years.
Drafted for 2 years.
Because of the Korean War. But I was only I was in for about 8 weeks, and the Korean War was over. And so the mentality I had enough of it already. and I assumed we'd go pack our bags and give them back their clothes and stuff and go home. It didn't work that way. You signed up, you didn't sign up. They drafted you for 2 years, so you were going to stay there for 2 years. So
even though the war was over, you're stuck there.
The war was over, yeah. So you learned real quick and make the most of it. So,
yeah.
What did you do? What was your MOS?
I had a lot of different jobs because the war was over and people were transferring people. They were really trying to find places for people to keep them busy.
Right.
And it was probably a pretty big job doing that. But I ended up being day room orderly and mill clerk.
Yeah.
And that was, up to about 6 months, 7 months. And I didn't do anything. I had a part-time job doing upholstery in town, and I'd go in town. I'd work. I mean, I could upholster it, at that point. I'd go in there and work 3 or 4 hours. I mean, I was rolling in money, sending money home. And I liked it. But then at one point, I got in a little bit of trouble. And,
Well, inquiring minds want to know.
What happened there?
Well, I'm not proud of the fact, but I hit a sergeant. And in the Army, any service, if you hit an officer, a non-commissioned officer, if you hit him, you go to the brig. And it's automatic. You go to the brig for 6 months, and you're dishonorable discharge. And that's what I hit him, because I hit this guy pretty hard.
Did he deserve it?
I think he deserved it. It's something you don't steal, you don't do. And it took me, I didn't care at the time because he made an inappropriate move on me. And I thought he deserved it. I mean, anybody do something like that deserved it. I mean, anybody do something to one of my kids, I'd whack them one too. So anyway, long story short, he said, I'm going to take and tell the captain what you did. And I said, you better tell him what I did, and I'm going to tell him what you did too. So he, next thing I know, I'm standing in front of the captain all decked out. And he told the captain what happened, and the captain says, okay, he says, I'll take care of it. Well, fortunately, I always went to church on Sunday morning. I never missed a Sunday morning. And the captain happened to be Catholic. And Sunday morning in an Army camp, there was only 25, 30 people there. So he had to see me every Sunday. So I figured today that he figured I couldn't be all bad for what I did. What I did was wrong, but he figured I wouldn't be all wrong. So he says, Minahan, he says, I got 2 choices to do with you. The first choice, I send you a stockade. What's the second choice? I don't want the first choice. The second choice is I send you to Japan. You go to Japan, you go home for 30 days first, and then you come back here, and then you ship out to Japan, and you spend the rest of your time over in Japan. Wow. I said, I'll take the second choice. and I still contribute to the fact that this guy thought that I couldn't be all bad.
Right.
So he did something that he didn't really should have done. He should have just sent me to the stockade and been
Right.
over with, and my life would have been over with as far as the service goes.
Yeah.
So as it was, I ended up going to Japan.
Wow. Wow.
The time I got to Japan, it was 2 weeks run on a ship, a freight ship, a troop ship. And then in Japan, I finagled around where one day they were asking for volunteers to go to the MPs. And everybody says, no MPs, who'd want to be an MP? I'm thinking, it'd be a lot better than what I'm doing here on this line company, because I'm climbing poles,
Right.
Yeah.
And anything better. So I volunteered, and I went in for an interview with the colonel. And the colonel says, well, Minahan, he says, why would you want to be an MP? I said, well, sir, I says, when I get out of the Army, I hope to get on the Los Angeles Police Department.
Oh.
And I think being an MP would be good for my record.
Yeah.
And he says, good thinking. He said, but didn't you ever think about staying in the Army? And I was only a private at the time. And I said, well, sir, only if I get into something I really enjoy, then I might think about staying in. Well, I was in the MPs. We had a 2-week hard school and then on-the-job training.
Wow. Wow.
So-
Didn't you? I heard somebody about maybe through Jeff or someone that you used to drive around in general.
Well, no, not the general. I didn't get that far.
Oh.
If I would have re-upped, I might have made it to the general. But as it was, I drove the colonel.
The colonel.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was over to his driver. We had a special Jeep that said Provost Marshal on it.
Oh, Provost Marshal. Yeah, I remember.
And people see that Jeep, they step aside a little bit more
yeah.
than just
Oh,
the
yeah.
military. So they thought the colonel was in there with me, but he wasn't in there very often. But no, I drove him for probably the last 3 or 4 months I was in Japan, which is a good soft job.
Yeah. What part of Japan?
Mostly in Hokkaido.
Hokkaido,
Northern,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
A very northern part of Japan. So.
Yeah. Beautiful place, beautiful country.
Ron's been to Japan. Ron
Lived in Japan 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Uh-huh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In northern part there?
Sasebo.
Yeah.
Yokohama,
That's where-
Sasebo. Fuel depot, Army. Yeah.
So I had a good time there, and then, eventually my 2 years was up, and I came home and went back to the upholstering shop.
Yeah. Just so we kind of get a little bit of insight into what year was that you were in Korea and Japan? What year would that have been?
53. 1953, I got out of the Army.
Okay, so you're 8 years after World War II, basically.
No, 53, 54, 55 I got out.
55 you got out. Okay. So you're post-war. What was Korea and Japan like? I mean, what was that like back then?
Well, you can still see the remnants of the bombing and the downpour, and the Japanese people. They were, more or less, a lot of them were houseboys, and it was a backward country, kind of what we saw of it. It was an area we saw of it.
Yeah.
It was good. I mean, we had in the Army had a lot of fun there.
Yeah. Yeah.
We traveled around quite a bit.
Were they welcoming? I mean, because we had fought them. What was their attitude towards the American soldiers?
The Japanese, I think that they didn't have an army, or they had an army, but they didn't have any weapons. But they were soldiers and we were soldiers. We couldn't talk Japanese, and they couldn't speak English, but we sure drank a lot of beer together. and we knew what was happening between us of just drinking beer.
So you actually bonded then with
Yeah,
with
we
the
did
people.
bond with the Japanese.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. And so you finished up your career. Now, working for the colonel, what was that like? Because I would imagine you got to go to some fancy shindigs and.
Well, not really, no, because I'd have to stay and watch the Jeep so nobody would steal it, But it was interesting, is one of the really nice things that came out of that, he had I don't know what it was, it might have been a 1950 big Buick over there, his personal car. And I guess he definitely was a career man. And he had his personal car there. So if he wanted me to run some errands for him, he wouldn't let me take his Jeep to go on errands. He'd make me take his car. And so I'd drive his car down there. Not too many people had 1950 Buicks.
Right.
And everybody would salute you. I thought that was kind of cool,
Yeah.
And I did that for my 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
3 or 4 months. At a time.
Yeah. And so did they want? You said they were trying to talk you into staying, but you just
Well, they
to come
always
home?
make they were at that time they were still offering bonuses if you stayed,
Yeah.
But I didn't have any interest in that or any interest in getting on the LA Police Department. It was just a good opening for me to get there.
So you didn't
we're
really
done.
want to be in the police department then?
No, I never had that in mind at all. I just learned it. I learned a long time ago. Sometimes you got to tell a person what they want to hear.
Yep, that's right. Yep, absolutely. I did it to him for years when he was my boss. Jeff was my boss.
Yeah.
And I sweetened him up real good, man.
And I've tried to tell my kids that too. I said, sometimes you just got to tell the people what they want to hear. And you got to tell them the truth, but you can't lie to them, but you can't tell them the answer they're looking for here.
That's good advice. Sage advice.
Hey, so let's get him back to the States, if you don't mind. Coming home from World War II, my dad was in World War II, Korean War. My dad was in the Korean War as well, and his reception wasn't so great when he came back. How was yours coming back to the States after being?
Oh, everything was very normal.
Yeah.
I was, I went right to my job the next day. It was just normal as could be. I, picked up where I left off.
So the homecoming was just seamless.
Just
came
routine. Had a lot of friends coming back at the same time. A lot of guys I went to school with went in the same time and came out around the same time.
Yeah.
So we picked up where we left off out drinking beer at 19, 20. Well, by this time we were 21 years old, so we didn't have to have somebody buy it for us like we did when we went in there.
Oh, how old were you when you met your wife?
When I met my wife?
Yes.
Oh man, I was 29 years old.
29.
Yeah, I had too much fun. No, I don't think that. No, I was.
How'd you meet her?
I met her at a youth group in Long Beach, and the youth group is called Single Catholics Over 20. And so when you get over 20 and you're Catholic, you're not married yet, you better look around and start thinking about it.
Right.
And I was already 27, 28 years old.
Right.
And by this time I was 29, probably, or 28. Yeah. And so anyway, I was down there, and a friend of mine, Dick Pierce, had some girls, secretaries that worked with him, and he invited not only his secretary, but she brought some friends down. One happened to be Kay, and she only went there one time. I went there 3 times, and we started dating after that. And that was
wow.
And we dated for about a year and got married.
Wow, beautiful lady. Yeah.
At that point, did you have your carpet business, or when did you get your
I had
carpet
both.
business? You had both the upholstery and the carpet. Oh, okay.
Well, actually, when I got married, I only had the upholstering business.
Okay.
But then within a year or so, I got mixed up with this carpet thing, and I got into the carpet more or less full time.
Gotcha.
Well, you remember the carpet because you used to drive to May Company and pick up all those.
Oh, I used to have to go to May Company and pick up carpet all the time. Yeah.
I worked on the docks at May Company.
And I probably saw you down there picking up carpet for Big Tom, but that's funny. So what made you decide to come to Bellflower?
People were moving out, and we had a fairly nice home in Bellflower. In fact, I lived on a street that I thought, when I used to sell newspapers at 10 years old, I thought if I ever lived on this street, I'd be on top of the world. But at that time, it was changing. People were moving out.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just, I say turmoil, things were moving. And people were buying bigger houses in Orange County and Palos Verdes and things like that.
Yeah.
So I made the big step and bought a big house in Bellflower.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that's as far as I could go.
Yeah. So you had your business in La Mirada, and then your house in Bellflower.
Yeah.
And then you started your.
And I still had the upholstery shop, but
okay.
Real estate really took a big hit, and that's what I owned a building there, and where it got to be where it was worth next to nothing.
Oh.
You couldn't sell it if somebody had the money to pay you for it. You couldn't sell it.
Wow.
And I had a couple of apartments at the time too, and they weren't worth anything.
Yeah.
They're hardly worth what the mortgages were on them. But it was just a tough time, and if anybody's in real estate knows things go up and down, but this time it really took a big dip. So,
This was in Compton?
in Compton.
And so was that was that when the riots were going on and whatnot? Because my parents got caught up in that. They owned a house.
Literally.
Yeah, they owned a house in Southgate.
The riots were a big thing, and it was so close to the riots. I mean, we had, we thought they were going to tear our building down.
Sure.
I mean, the things changed so much. Our building got broken into continually.
Yeah.
They break the windows and just for meanness, no reason.
Yeah.
Or break the window and get in and steal some fabric or something. But
Sure.
So I wasn't the only one that did.
No, we
had to get out.
My family had to move from Southgate because of that. My parents built their first home there in Southgate because, like you talked about Compton being kind of an idyllic place, they talked the same way about Southgate. They had grown up in Southgate, and they said it was a beautiful community. But then the riots happened, and overnight, almost, it just went downhill, and we started getting the graffiti everywhere and the vandalism everywhere, and the property dipped, same thing. And my parents had to take a loss on that house in order to move. And so, I think it was just, that was happening everywhere around that area. But yeah.
And there's a building boom in the Orange County area and Palo Verde, and people were buying big homes very reasonable. It weren't that expensive.
Yeah.
Asked me how much I paid for the house in Bellflower.
What did you pay for it? Your big house in Bellflower. What'd you pay?
The big house in Bellflower.
Yeah.
We paid $36,000 for it.
Wow.
36,000. And my poor mother came and looked at it, and she shook her head and she says, "You can't afford this. You're going to lose it." And 36, that's been 52 years ago.
Wow. Well, it ended up being a pretty good investment.
That was,
Well, so you had your carpet business, and you're married, and you're living in Bellflower, and then you start having a family. And
well, I started having a family in Compton.
Oh, did you? Was
we were married in 62, and we started having family in 63.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you know that we had 4 children in 5 years' time. So. and that's why I knew we needed a bigger house.
Yeah, boy, 4 kids in 5 years, that's a busy household.
Well, for Kay, it was a big household.
Yeah, that's busy. Wow. Yeah, so just so the audience knows, Tom has 5 kids. I grew up with almost all of them. The younger one, Ted, he's younger, so he was still in diapers, I think, when I first met you guys. But I think I told you, when I think of you and Kay, I mean, you guys are faith, family, and then friendships. I mean, really, just that's what I've seen in you guys throughout the years. And you've been involved with the church. You've always demonstrated that, and you have a place in Lake Mead, and you were always generous when we worked for you, letting us go and use that place. But one of the rules was we had to go to church on Sunday. So we would always have to go in and say hi to Father Joe to make sure that he told you that we were there on Sunday. But with the parenting, you've done an amazing job with your family, and that if you think about it, you've got everything you need. You got a doctor, you got a lawyer, you got a teacher, you got an accountant, and you got a business owner. So how did you do it? What's your advice to not only raising a great, successful family, but to this day, they're all grown and they're all extremely close? I mean, that's so rare in today's society. I mean, what's the secret to that? What did you and Kay do? I mean, what's your advice?
Good question. If I could market that, I'd probably make a whole lot of money.
Sure would. You definitely would.
But I can't really give you a good answer for it. It's just you got a good partner and you have the same values in life, and that's what you do. It's just normal thing. There's nothing unusual about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it's a good point, though. I couldn't market that if I could ever figure out.
Rich man.
Yeah, because it really is a story of success. And like I said, I've always looked up to your family, and you guys have been like a second family to me as well. I mean, you've been, like I said, you've been so generous with your time and the things you did. You guys were always very involved in the community too. Like you said, your friendships, and you mentioned the Bellflower Kiwanis. You got involved with Kiwanis back in Compton, but then you continued on.
Well, I didn't really continue on because we moved over. I basically dropped out of Kiwanis at the time because I had my hands full over here. So that was one of the things I could eliminate, and so I did eliminate it. But then I was only out of it for, I don't know, a year, maybe 2 years. But Ken Cleveland used to got a hold of me, and they all know Ken Cleveland.
Yeah.
But, he got a hold of me, and he always call me up and says, "Tom, I got a house over there. We got to put carpet in." He says, "Meet me at Friday in Kiwanis, and we'll talk about it." And he did that to me about every other Friday for about 3 months. And I finally gave in. I said, I might as well join. I didn't really have the time, but I did join, and I'm glad I did join back in the Kiwanis because it's been part of my life.
Yeah.
There's a difference in Kiwanis back then and now. What are some of the changes? And also, I notice I don't see a lot of young people. Are you doing something to bring in young people to keep this legacy?
Because I think right now I don't know what our membership is because it's not as strict as it used to be. When I first joined, if you missed 3 meetings, you better have a big excuse.
Right.
Or at the board meeting, your name would come up at the board meeting, and if you didn't have any reason for missing 3 meetings, you're out. And they would actually vote you out. They didn't want to, but they wanted close to perfect attendance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they got close to perfect attendance, and that's what made the club dry. But things have changed there too, though, because today it takes a family, it takes full-time work to keep a family going and keep a business going. If you're a business owner, you can't afford to be paying people to do work that you can do.
Right.
And, and that's one of the big drawbacks of people joining the Kiwanis today is that everybody's too busy.
Yeah.
But the ones that do join, I think we come here every Friday. We have a good time. We try to have a program going on, and we're here to help each other and help the community.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. I mean, you got to put out to the community and help the community as much as you can.
Yeah.
I'm sure the city officials will say they can't run it by themselves. They depend on volunteers to get things done.
Yeah, I think it's important, and you're right. I think a lot of clubs and even churches are having a hard time these days. People aren't getting involved as like they used to,
True.
and you know, like you said, it's expensive and people are busy. But I know that it seems like you got a lot from participating and being active in those groups. What did you get out of it, and why do you think it's important?
You know, and we've always said this, and I've been told this, and I've told other people this. You don't join Kiwanis for what you can get out of Kiwanis. You want to join Kiwanis for what you can give. But I'm telling you, as I was in business, I got so much business out of the Kiwanis community. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
At one time we had Herman Gosselin. He had 5 dress stores. And every time he'd open a dress store, he wouldn't tell me that he needed carpet. He'd just tell me to go do the carpet. And he wouldn't ask me for a price or anything. He said,
Wow.
He said, Tommy, he said, oh, I've got a shopping mall up here. I'm just opening up a store. And go up there, measure it up, and tell me how much the carpet's going to cost. And you run into people like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So it's a good networking opportunity. It sounds like.
It was, yeah. I mean, I say you don't want to ever join an organization, any organization for the networking, but it just comes automatic.
I guess you could say the same with church. I mean, you go to church to be able to give and to be able to you receive and help and do the community good. Yeah.
Where did you go to church? What was your main parish?
St. Bernard's in Bellflower.
St. Bernard's,
Yeah, I've always gone there, yeah.
You've been how many years now?
Oh, I've been there for 52 years.
Wow.
But then in Compton, I mean, that's the only other church where we went was Our Lady of Victory in Compton. That's where I went to school for 8 years.
Wow. Wow.
And I didn't go after 8 years. So.
Yeah. I just want, 90 years you've lived, and surely you've have experience and wisdom far beyond anybody at this table, especially Jeff.
I know Jeff too long.
That's the problem.
And I don't argue with you on that.
That's the problem. But what are some of the lessons that you've learned in your 90 years that you can pass on to us?
I think the big thing is just be honest with people and do what you can to help other people. And if you're helping them, they're going to help you. And that's what we need in this life. I mean, we can't do everything on our own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Hardly anything. And then, in marriage advice, you've been married how long now?
It's been.
Don't get it wrong.
I got to think about it. It's been 60 years anyway.
Wow.
60 years.
Wow.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah. What's your?
Well, no, Terry out there. Terry will be there. Terry's out there. She's almost 60, so it's been 60 years.
Better be 60 years.
Yeah, probably closer to 61.
Well, what's your advice? I mean, because we have a pretty wide audience that listens to this podcast, and so what's your advice?
Oh, you can put this on the air?
Heck yeah! People can learn from it. What do you? So
I thought it was just for this group was going to hear it.
You're gonna have a fan club after this. So
You need an agent.
But yeah, so what's your advice to folks? 60 years of marriage, that's huge.
Well, I think anybody in marriage that long, I mean, sometime along they're going to have problems, and I think people have money problems. I mean, that's a normal thing. I think everybody will admit to that. And so over the years, I think I learned that if I make the money and Kay spends the money, we're going to get along perfectly well.
Good advice.
Good advice. I wish I'd have known that about 20 years ago.
Right?
Wow.
Well,
Nice. Yeah. Wow. I'm just kind of like blown away. Young people. Well, you see young people today. They're so different than it was when we were coming up and when you were coming up. What advice do you have to young people today?
I can remember one thing that my dad always taught me, and I didn't think it was very smart at the time, but he always said to my brothers and sisters, it's better to have a job and not get paid than not have a job at all. And today, I'm telling you, today, young people, they want to make, they want to make $20 an hour, and they're not worth $20 an hour.
Right.
If you ask anybody in business, it's difficult to hire a young person anymore. And where I got my training was working for somebody for next to peanuts. For
free.
But I was glad to have the job.
Yes.
I had the job and I had money in my pocket.
Yes.
It wouldn't matter how much I made, I was making something.
Yes.
And today they're not. They just right away they say, you go to Home Depot when you want to hire somebody, which I don't do that, and I've done that before, but I don't do that anymore. But the first thing they want to know is how much you're going to pay me and when's lunch.
Right.
And that's a shame.
Right,
It's
it
a shame.
is. It
That's the
really
way.
is.
And not everybody. I mean, there's people out there still want to work, but I run into people all the time. They would hire somebody. If people were willing to work, but they're not willing to work.
Right.
It's not worth it to hire them.
Do you think today's technology has something to do with that? I mean, remember Dick Tracy?
Well,
and all
I'm
of
not
that?
too smart on technology, so I can't hear. But no, I don't think so. I think so because you think everybody wants to go to college, and I'm not against going to college, but everybody is not made out to go to college.
That's right.
And there's a lot of money, to me, wasted in college.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't say you're wasting it if you're out there having fun because you're only going to live once, so you got to have fun in life too.
Right.
But there's too many jobs out there that don't require college education.
Right.
But you have to learn. You have to be able to work your way up to make any money on it.
Right. Yeah, remember we used to have wood shop in high school and
Vocational
metal shop,
skills,
vocational
yeah.
skills,
Yep.
and they don't have those anymore.
No.
That's how I learned a few little things, but like you say, everybody's not geared for college.
well, one of the amazing things that blows me away, for instance, Tom's oldest son right now is kind of redoing a house, and your boys, I mean, they know how to do everything. Like I said, you got a doctor, a lawyer, and a business owner, but they work with their hands and they know how to fix things, and that
Wow.
comes from the example you set in working on properties and rehabbing properties and teaching them. One thing I think that you always gave was enough freedom for us to try to figure out how to fix things.
Figure it out.
Yeah. And we didn't always know what we were doing. And I was probably the worst of all of them, admittedly. But through that trial and error, your boys are amazing. I don't know the word for it. Handymen, skilled. They got skills. They can do almost everything. Electric, plumbing, carpeting, definitely. Tim does flooring and whatnot. And they know how to work with their hands.
Yes.
They're not afraid of it.
Wow.
You've been a big example in my life, and I've learned a lot from you. Who are some of your biggest influences throughout your life?
Probably my wife.
Yeah.
Without doubt. I mean, she's there all the time. So,
Yeah.
so as I said before, when you learn to let her spend the money and you make the money, everything's going to work out fine.
Yeah.
Well, back when I was in college and worked with you guys, she was there as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, you guys worked together.
Oh,
hand
yeah,
in
that-
hand, so
That goes back to what I was saying too. Is you can't afford to pay somebody for what they do, and Kay's a good example of it. She never took a salary when she worked for me, but she did the work that earned more than most other people working for me.
yeah.
But
Amazing.
and that's why we survived. More than likely, why we survived that business when we did. And then we were fortunate enough to. The city wanted to buy the building, so that's kind of a icing on the cake at the time.
Well, that was a great job for me during college, and I want to thank you for hiring me, and for all
I'm
the.
thinking about I'd let you drive that big truck that didn't have any brakes on it.
What was that? Tell me about
Oh my
that.
gosh! Oh, the one story that I remember the most is, we had a big, I was in college and I was green, man, but we had this stake bed truck. And one day Big Tom says, okay, you came to me and you said, Jeff, we got a big load coming in. I need you to go to May Company. And you got to come back with every roll they load. Don't leave any loads there. And so I go down there and I pull into the docks in downtown LA and they start loading this truck. And pretty soon it's going above the stake beds and it's like high. And I'm like, holy moly. And the bed of the truck's getting lower and lower.
Geez.
And this truck driver next to me comes over, he goes, how good are you at tying knots? And I go, not very. And he goes, I'm going to tie this for you.
Oh, wow.
And he goes, that's a lot of carbon. I go, I know. And he goes, I'm going to tie it for you. And he got up there and we tied it together. I drove all the way back to La Mirada. Yeah. And I every bump I would hit, that stake bed would hit the back tires because it was bumping. And the smoke was pouring out of the back because the tires were smoking. And so I white knuckled that sucker all the way back to La Mirada. But I made it back. But
what about the brakes? What happened with
the brakes I didn't even remember. But we would work those summers where we would redo those schools and
Pull up carpet.
Yeah, pull up carpet. It was hard work, but it really, I don't know, there was something about it that just gave you purpose and gave you a good work ethic.
Yeah.
And working with all the boys, I mean, working with, your boys and Mark Harold and, Jay, and I mean, it was good, honest work, and we were all going to school at the time. It kept me in school because it taught me I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life, but I enjoyed it while I was doing it. And, it was just a great lesson. I just appreciate those days, and like I said, there's so many things that I got to do because of your generosity. Because of you, I got to water ski, I got to snow ski. You would take me on trips with the family. My parents never did any of that stuff. My parents we did a lot. We did camping and stuff, but I would have never got to ski had it not been for you guys, and just the friendships that I've had with your kids and your family over the years. I mean, it's priceless. To me, it's just been priceless. And so I thank you, and I thank you for your family and for the example you've set. I mean, it's just been...
Well, that's something we do today still. We still go on family trips.
You do, yes.
Yeah, every year we go at least once and sometimes 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not the whole family, but at least all the family at one time during the year.
Yeah.
And we've done that for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Wow. So the party you're having on Saturday, you're going to have the whole family there? Well, how much is it now that you've got grandkids, great grandkids? Do you have great
We have
grandkids? Yeah.
Terry has 5 grandchildren, which are our great grandchildren.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So when the whole family gets
5
together,
and 1 on the way.
Wow.
So when Saturday, the event, when the whole family shows up, I mean, how many people is that now?
Oh, and just a family?
Yeah.
33 people.
33.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And that's my children, their spouses, and their children.
And their children.
Yeah.
33. Wow.
And now on Saturday, I don't know who's going to be there. I mean, it may not be anybody there. Who knows,
Yeah.
But there are a lot of nephews and nieces out there. And now if they show up, it'll be something else.
You probably have over 100 people there. You figure with all your contacts and your friends and family but again, friends, family, I mean, he's the example.
That we don't know, and we hope to just have a good time and visit. And people, I know that a lot of the cousins will get to see each other. They haven't seen each other for a year or 2 years.
Yeah.
And it'll just be a good time.
Well,
Awesome.
They're coming for you. It's a good reason.
90 years old. 90 years young, shall we say.
That's right. That's
Wow.
right. So
I should be so blessed.
yeah. Any parting words? Anything else you want to add?
No, I appreciate you guys coming out and sharing this with the Kiwanis group, and
Oh, yeah.
and wish you well in your fun game.
Yeah, we do this for fun.
It
And
is
It's
fun.
for interviews like this that
Indeed. It makes it all worthwhile,
It makes
doesn't
it
it?
all worth it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, you want to take us out of here then?
Yeah. Which way did you come in? No, I'm just kidding. We've got a million of them, folks. But no, I also want to make mention and thank all the folks that are listening in and downloading. And while we were sitting here, I've got people asking, where can I find it? They thought we were recording live tonight.
Oh,
And
okay.
so they want to know, where can we find it? So I had 3 calls just while we were sitting here. So
Really?
If you could give our information out again one more time, how they can find us.
Well, if you find this podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast, so you got Apple Podcasts, you got Google Podcasts. You can get a hold of us though through our Facebook page,
Easiest
the
way.
I Was There podcast. If you want to email us, it's the I Was There podcast at gmail.com. So again, reach out. If these groups that are getting together, man, we want to hear from you.
I
So
know, I'm blown away.
we need some photo proof of that. I think.
Can we say the name? I want to say hi to Jeff Mitchell and
Hey, Jeff.
Amy and all
Amy.
those guys. So nice you guys are listening in the group. Everybody that's with you.
Yeah, thanks
you
for
so
hosting
much.
the party. And I have a feeling we'll have a few Minahans listening to this one. So
All right,
Here's
all
a
right.
shout out to all the Minahan clan.
Yeah, Dr. Tom, my physician. Whenever I have any kind of quirk or anything going on with me, I always go through to Jeff to get Dr. Tom's opinion. So he's sort of my distant doctor, you know. Then I go to my doctor before I go after.
Well, can I add something about that,
Yes.
Dr. Tom?
Yes.
12 years ago, we had a party for my sister who was 90 years old. That was 12 years ago. And she was hitting the beer a little bit too early at 10 o'clock in the night, 10 o'clock in the morning. She was out there drinking beer, and the sun's starting to shine. All of a sudden, she collapsed.
Oh no.
And Tom was there, and Tom grabs her, and she's dead.
No pulse?
No pulse.
Oh my gosh.
And so in the meantime, somebody else calls the paramedics, you know, and if ambulance shows up and the fire truck shows up, and here these people are starting to gather for this 90th birthday.
Oh man.
So,
Wow.
and my older brother, he looked at me, he says, Tom, she's gone, didn't she? And I said, that's what he says. And so the paramedic says, well, and he says, well, we put you in the ambulance and take you to the hospital. She says, I'm not going to the hospital. I've got a birthday party going on here. She's 90 years old. She says, well, we can't leave until we do an AKG on you. And so we got to take you in the house there and do an AKG. And they were in there for a half hour, 45 minutes. She comes down. She says, what's the big fuss going on here? We're having a party going on. And that was my sister.
Holy.
Wow.
And she lived another 5 years after that. So.
Wow.
Wow. So
You ever heard that? You never heard that story?
No.
Oh, Tom pronounced her dead.
wow.
So my thing is, if my son Tom ever says I'm dead, please get a second opinion.
Very good.
Oh,
good,
that's the
good,
perfect
good.
ending, man.
Good. Perfect ending. Perfect ending. I can't top that. Wow. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you.
Gosh,
Thanks for
man,
being here.
So good to see you again. And we got to see more. Maybe stop by the Kiwanian someplace to see a little more of
Anytime
you.
Friday, you want to come
Plus-
and have lunch, be my guest.
But thank you so much for being with us. And again, folks, if you know of someone who has witnessed history, as Big Tom has, the Korean War and all that kind of stuff, if you know someone who was a witness to history, hit us up.
Yep.
You know, we'd like to get them on the program and talk to them. So if nothing else is left, we'll see you next time.
On the I Was There podcast.
Yeah.
And
Hey, you know, I was just wondering, can you make my voice echo like was I was there? Can you make it echo when you edit?
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Thank you for watching.
Thanks a lot.
I was there.
And one more time, happy birthday, Tom.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Tom.
Thank you.